This is MVCC's Topic Circles.
Thank you, Geri, for coming to talk with us today and be part of our topic circle. So you've been at MVCC for how long?
That's a good question. Over 20 years.
Over 20 years, and now you're retired.
Yes.
And we learned a little bit about your story because you have a book on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
And so we wanted to invite you in to talk a little bit about your story. Yours is unique to the topic circle realm because you're going to be talking about your perspective as a caregiver.
Mm-hmm.
So if you would just start by sharing your story, how that all evolved, and
Sure.
from there.
Thank you for inviting me. Our mom had Alzheimer's, and my two sisters and brother and I became her carers as the disease advanced. There's a very high incidence in my mom's family of Alzheimer's. In fact, her sister had early onset in her 50s. And after I had bought a house where my mom was living, the building wasn't being maintained. So because I had just bought a house and now I actually had my own space, I offered if she wanted to come and, share a home with me. And she did, and it was wonderful. But a couple of incidents happened very early on where she no longer recognized certain objects. And in one of those incidents, she got quite angry, which was not our mom. Because of the background in her family, I realized with these type of incidents, it was more than just being a little forgetful as you age. Our family learned a lot, and we were able, throughout a number of years, really, going on 8 years, to share care with her in our home.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things I was really hoping to let people know, one of the lessons we best learned was to allow our mom to live in whatever moment of time her mind was in, because that really was her reality.
Sure.
One day we were sitting together and she said to me, "I'm in first grade, you know." I said, "I know. It's such an important grade, isn't it?" And she said, "Yes." And we had a lovely little conversation, but clearly my mom was a young child in that moment. What really taught us the importance of this, there came a time as the disease progressed when one day, out of the blue, she asked me where her parents were. And I remember being stunned and almost couldn't move because I thought, how do I answer this? I don't know. So I hesitantly said, "Well, Mom, do you remember that Grandma died when I was going to MV and Grandpa died when I was 10 years old?" And she thought about it for a little bit and said, "You're right, I do remember that." But then she wanted to read their obituaries to help her remember. So when she would inquire, I would say, "Would you like to read their obituaries?" And she would read them, and it would come back to her. Well, a day came when it didn't. And when she read those obituaries, her heart was broken. Her grief was brand new. And my siblings and myself and her best friend, we all said, "Okay, enough. From now on, we're going to let her believe they're alive." So when she would inquire where her mama and papa were, and this, over the course of the rest of the disease, became a source of great need and anxiety for her, we would say, "Well, they're out visiting so-and-so, they had some errands to run, and they'll be back in a little while." And this would help her to calm that anxiety a little bit. We could engage her in something else for a little while until we had to repeat the pattern. I think living this way with someone is certainly kinder for them, and it's also less stressful for them and you. Because the horrible thing about Alzheimer's is you cannot retrain that brain anymore. What is lost is lost. So I felt that was something that helped people to know, because in a number of instances I've seen families where this is a very difficult thing for someone to do. They feel like they have to be honest and always tell the truth, or they get frustrated when they've already repeated something to someone. This disease means you will just repeat and repeat and find what works best for your individual person, and use that as kind of a go-to.
Sounds like it requires a lot of patience. And so your mom was very fortunate in that you didn't have any outside care come in. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Because all 4 of us siblings ended up living in the same area, even though we were all working full-time, we were able to manage jobs. So my brother actually moved back to Utica when he realized how the disease was evolving. He got an evening job. So he was with Mom during the daytime. One of my sisters got out of work at 2:30 in time to stay with Mom so he could go to work. She would stay until I got home from work, and then my other sister, who lived further away in Rome, would come and help out on evenings or weekends when she wasn't working. It was manageable. I did inquire with Office for the Aging about having aides come in, thinking, well, maybe in the evening. Right now, I would say our healthcare system, the Medicare system, doesn't provide a lot of monetary assistance to help pay for in-home aides. So because we had 4 of us, because we were making it work, that's what we were utilizing until the disease became advanced.
So if folks were needing to find somebody to come in and offer some assistance, are there special skill sets or things you'd encourage people to look for when they're hiring someone to come in?
Mostly so that someone has patience and kindness and understands the disease enough to know what the behavioral changes in a person will be, and to also know they'll have to repeat and repeat and repeat. There are wonderful places, wonderful organizations, Alzheimer's organization, of course, that people should go to and find information about. They have local chapters for caregiver meetings so that you can meet with other people going through the same thing. And those persons are wonderful resources because they can get you in touch with people they know who are helping them. Alzheimer's organization also has an online caregiver forum that I went to frequently. There's local organizations too that if you inquire, Office for the Aging may be able to guide you with some of them. So there is help around, but I think it might be a little work sometimes to find what you need.
Mm-hmm. Sure. And that, I feel like it's super important to, you're being a caregiver, but also to make sure you give that we use self-care, right? But to make sure you take care of yourself and be part of the forums. And I imagine there's probably a lot of difficulty with family, right? Like you had 4 siblings, but I can't imagine that was always easy with the 4 of you and trying to navigate that together. And
you know what? For us, it ended up being very easy because as much as we're each pretty unique in our personalities, we just meshed with this illness.
Mm-hmm.
So we never had a time where one or more persons disagreed about what we should do. We honestly were able to always agree, this is how we'll proceed. This is when something new crops up, this is what we'll do. I know that isn't always the case, and it's often very hard for someone who may be the main carer and other siblings don't live in the area. And unless you actually experience someone with Alzheimer's for longer than just a little visit, you're not going to get the full effect of what that carer who's there all the time is going through. But because we were all working so much with her, it was all easily seen by each of us that this is what's happening to her. And we had no difficulty in coming together for that care plan that she needed.
that's really admirable. Wonderful.
It was lucky. It was wonderful. You know, we've got a close family and we're very fortunate.
It's awesome. So you were also working full-time here at MVCC, and so I imagine that had some intricate balance issues. Are there things you'd like your colleagues at MVCC to know?
First, to say thank you, because I had a few bosses during this time frame, and each one of them was generous and compassionate, and the people I worked with who probably heard me and listened to me more than they wanted to, even sometimes. People were so compassionate. And I know at the end stage of my mom's life, I was pretty close to a breaking point stress-wise. So I actually ended up taking more time off from work to be with my mom in care. And having the people you work with understand. And I know there were times when my work lagged. And I do remember the day my mom died, I initially wasn't going to go visit her until later, but I just felt like I need to be there today because my other sisters could not get out of work. And it happened to be a not good time for my boss for me to say, I'm not coming in today. But there was no, Geri, you can't. There was, Geri, you must go be with your mom, because we knew it was at her end of life. So I ended up being able to be there when she passed. And everyone at MB was wonderful. So I think when you have a supportive environment, when they know you have an illness in your family, it makes all the difference.
So one of the things that we are talking about and exploring with our topic circles is the idea of invisible disability, right? Whether it's ourselves that have the invisible disability, or as a carer, it's not going to be outward for people to see necessarily. And you were just talking about the grace of your colleagues. And so that's one thing we're trying to sort of have people think about, right? So working with you, being on a committee with you, but not being necessarily close with you at the time, I wouldn't necessarily have known you were going through all of this and carrying this difficulty and this, things taxing your bandwidth. So are there things you'd want the community to know, or anything that you want to share about that?
I think the people probably who worked with me more obviously could see times when I was stressful. And sometimes you get exasperated or can get angry, and someone might not necessarily know why. I know that myself, I've tried to remember when someone I feel is, not acting maybe as nice as they normally might or as they should. I've often tried to say to myself, well, they might be having a really, really bad day today, and I know nothing about it. I think it does help. I know people enjoy privacy, but I think sometimes, especially for me, with everything that was happening for my mom, letting my colleagues that I worked with know that this was happening, it did help. And I think they were probably able to give me a little bit of leeway when maybe I wasn't my normal self that day. And I know for my bosses, they certainly gave me leeway if I wasn't quite as productive as I normally might have been with paperwork and things like that.
Wonderful. So if you'd like to learn more, Geri has a book out on Amazon. Do you want to talk about your book at all?
It's called Our Mother's Keepers. It's 99 cents. You can email me for a free PDF, for goodness sakes. And really it began as a therapy for me, kind of a journal. And when she passed away, I just felt a need for her story to be heard. And I think that's true for human beings. We want to feel like we were heard. So that's how it began. And it's just something that may or may not benefit someone to see what that process was like for our family. But every family is unique. Every brain and personality is unique. While Alzheimer's has definite markers of stages of the disease and emotional and physical changes, each person is unique. So you can't really say one thing will always work and it won't work for everyone.
Thank you so much for sharing your story today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Happy to have you here.
Thanks.